Welcome to Deep Treks with Dan Shipton. We hope God is blessing your Advent season, and we're glad you've chosen to join us in our Advent journey. Here is pastor and teacher Dan Shipton with today's Advent devotion.
Welcome to Deep Treks. I'm Dan Shipton, and this is the third day of our Advent Week of Peace. Today we're talking about the fact that peace comes from giving it to God. You know, we've been talking about the cost of peace this week, and a lot of times we get caught up in worrying about things, and we want the peace of God, but we just don't want to make the commitment to God, as we talked about yesterday. And sometimes we just don't want to accept that God has to do things for us. You know, it's not something that we like to think about, but peace often has that cost. We know it ultimately comes because Jesus came for us. And we know yesterday we discussed the fact that we have to commit to God. If we're truly going to have Him bless us with His peace, we have to be committed to Him. Today, we want to look a little deeper into this, and all of this comes from our verses this week where we continue to look at Luke chapter 2 and verse 14 is where the angels come and they say, "Glory to God in the highest and peace on earth, on whom his favor rests." And ultimately, we go back to Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6, where we've been continually going back this Advent season, and we're reminded that Jesus was going to be the Prince of Peace. But what does it really mean to have the peace of God? We can seek the peace of God and we can even seek to be in His will as much as possible, but we can still miss out on peace. We live in a lot of anxiety today. There's a lot of stress going on and a lot of worry going on. But when we look at life around us, we have to realize it takes more work sometimes for some of us to let go of that problem or that worry or that anxiety and simply trust God than what some of us really can do. There's a cost to it. I don't know about you, but as a man, I like to be in control of things. I like to drive my car. I don't like to ride. My wife tells me she hates to ride with me because she thinks I get nervous over little things. But the truth is, it's just a habit. I like to drive. Men don't like to ask for directions, and most of the women out there probably know that. We like to do our own thing, and we like to be in our own control. And the truth of the matter is, as I was thinking about the verses about peace, we have to give it all up to God if we're really going to have peace. But how often do we say we want to give something up to God? How often do we say we want God to work in our lives and we lay it down and then turn right around and pick it right back up? We say, "God, I have this big problem. I need this solved and I need you to help me and I want you to take it." And I lay it down at the altar. And before I get done praying, I'm already thinking I need to figure out how to fix this problem instead of truly laying it down with God. But as we're being reminded this week, it takes some work to have peace. It takes some cost to have peace. And some of that cost may be that we have to admit that we need help. Something we men don't like to do. We have to admit we can't do it. And we truly have to trust God to do it for us. Now, I know some of you are going to disagree and you're going to want to stay in control. But the truth of the matter is you'll never have peace as long as you're fighting with God over the issues and the problems and the worries of your life. You're always going to be holding that worry, and there'll be a lack of trust in your heart with God. Now, I don't think that we always have those big revelations in life of lightning bolts where we get answers, but sometimes we just need to listen to the still, small voice of the Spirit. When the Spirit says, "Leave it with me. I'll take care of it." Our verse of the day that I thought about is in Matthew chapter 11:28. Jesus tells the people, "Come to me, all who are thirsty and tired, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, and my burden is light." Now, here's the thing about taking a yoke upon us. His yoke is light. His yoke isn't a burden, because He lifts our burdens off of us. He wants us to be filled with peace. You know, I've shared before, but I always think of those verses. And whenever I think of it, I think of the farmer and we think of the yoke that goes on two different animals. And I'm told that when they're training an animal, they have a way of sliding over where the weight is going so that all of the weight is on the animal that's already trained. And the other one's just kind of walking along. And I want to ask you today, are you letting God take the weight of your life, the worries that you have, and move it to His side? Or are you trying to move it back to your side? Come to me, He says, all who are weak and weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Give Him your concerns. I don't know where you're at or what you need to turn over today. But if you're like me, there's probably areas of your life you truly need to trust God in. He is in control. Pray to Him and leave the burdens with Him. Leave the worries with Him. Leave the wonderment about that job or what you're supposed to do, and He will direct your paths. I hope that God blesses you today as you journey with Him, and I hope you bless one another and others around you with those graceful things that He gives you as you trek this life.
Thanks for joining us for today's devotion in our Advent journey. Remember, if you have a question or prayer concerns, please leave us a note at deeptreks.com. May you be blessed by God today, and may you share the blessing on this trek of life.